Now,
sure.
these were all the Germans and Irish settlers. You get what I'm talking about? The Neffs were over there, the Nehammers were there, the Plocksters were there, the Schneiders were there, and back, you know. But we all went to school here. We have five elementary schools here. We had Lincoln
In
School.
Larimer.
Yeah,
Yep,
2 blocks
Lincoln.
away is Lincoln School,
Right.
which was renovated in 1927. You know, and Larimer School, which had a tower like the Tower of Pisa, that went above
The clock tower,
Yeah,
I've heard it had a-
and that was a middle school.
Yeah.
From there, you went up to the 7th grade, and you went to Westinghouse High School.
Right.
Then you got 7, 8, 9, and then you went 9, 10, 11, 12. You know
Right.
what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Westinghouse was the elite school. And Larimer was a general in the Revolutionary War, you know that. And that bridge was built in 1910, Larimer Bridge, which was, after that, 1934, the Westinghouse Bridge in the valley, which Khrushchev had his missiles pointed.
The huge one.
Yeah, the
over.
huge one. Was copied off of that. Because that was the
Yeah.
unbelievable.
What do you know about
Ne-
the stream Negley Run? That used to
Oh, the
run by
Niggly's
there?
Run. Well, see, if you figure it out, Niggly's Run went down to Cheyenne Street. That's Niggly's Run. They changed the name, you know that.
Yeah.
And Collins Avenue and Sheridan Avenue flowed down there, down to Washington Boulevard. Oh, you know, we have all kinds of steps around here.
Yep.
You know, going down to Niggly's Run. And this Silver Lake underneath the Lincoln Bridge, you know, did you ever see how this big stone?
Seen the
You see the
pictures.
big arch? Mind you, now they did that by hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How the hell they got the stones up there? I don't know to this very day. Because when I went to school at Westinghouse, I graduated in 1938 from Westinghouse. And we were the baby boomers of World War II, one rather. Get what I mean? And then getting back to, we had to help a Christian, an 8-room schoolhouse, 600 kids there. And that was well, it was an Italian Catholic church. And then here, these were the Germans, you know, German Catholics. Get what I mean? And that church right beside Social Security there, and they were the German Protestants. They were cousins with each other.
Oh,
Did you
right.
know that?
Right.
Yeah,
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Germany's half Catholic and half
That makes
Protestant.
sense.
Right.
So when they went to war, they'd always fight each other. You know, the Prussians would fight the Germans, and the Saxons and the Anglos. You know, and all that.
Yep.
You know
Yep.
that history.
Yep.
And well, getting back, it's so comical though when you think of it. They were all related, but they had their own, you know, churches. You get what I'm talking about? And then we had East Liberty Station. We had the Rotundo Carnegie Library on Station
I
Street.
think that was a beautiful library.
Beautiful. They should have never tore it down. And Station Street, where all the immigrants came off the boat, off the trains from New York or Philadelphia, they settled here because Pittsburgh was just developing. Like Homewood was. When my father came, he was a hod carrier for the Germans. The Germans and the Irish built all those bridges. Those chimneys. You see them up there? Well, there is so much history.
Indeed.
And-
How old's your house, we were
This
wondering?
house is 1883 was built.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
Oh,
1880.
yeah,
It's
18. And this is
How do you keep
and this
it-
is a sundial.
How do you keep it maintained?
Well, I used to paint that. It took me 35 gallons of paint. Look how pretty that was.
Yeah.
You don't get you.
And-
you
and-
couldn't have built a house like this. All these houses are original. Get what I'm talking about. Now there's two over there, the Neffs. They saved the. Did you see the gingerbread on up on top over
Mm.
there, down there? Well, the Neffs were on both sides of that, and the grandfather built it for them, and they saved one wall and they built it together. Can you imagine that? They didn't have any money. You realize that they made $1 a day. That was a lot of money. You get what I mean? People don't realize. Remember that song? It's bananas are cheaper. La 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 la. Now's the time to fall in love. You ever heard that one?
No.
Oh yeah, that's a depression song. Well, nickels and dimes. You know what I mean? So I could go on and on.
So
Everything in that house back there was 6 families there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? And this was the end of the city. And East Liberty was a little village. It was a village.
Sure.
Because Pittsburgh ended at Penn Avenue and 40th Street.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
outside
where,
of town.
Where National Biscuit is today.
Yep.
That whole area was owned by the Pennsylvania Railroad.
Right.
Because the last Ringling Butter Circus came in about 1939, just before the war. When they left there, they stayed there about a week. And you know, back at National Biscuit, the railroad parked their trains in there. Did
Sure.
you know that?
Yeah.
You know,
When the stockyards.
You know where the roundhouse is downtown, don't
Yeah.
you? On 21st Street.
Yeah.
Well, the Pennsylvania Railroad owns all that straight. We had the East Liberty station, where the commuter trains. You get on that, and you could go downtown, and then downtown you could pick up a streetcar. It took you all the way to Wheeling, West Virginia, for a quarter.
For a quarter.
Because kids were raised to stay in your own community. We never ventured very far. And you learn the hard way. Everything that I say, you learn the hard way, you know. And
What was your business?
me,
Yeah.
I worked for the post office. I graduated to Westinghouse High School. I couldn't get a job. The war broke out. I went to war. I worked at, you know, all our streets in this area, believe it or not, the alleys are named after generals and presidents. Like, that's Polk Way. You know, that one over there is Polk Way. Then down below you go General Stobner. Then you got General Maxwell. Did you know that? No. Just don't mind me when I do that, you know. Because, you know, I'm an old man, you know.
You're not that old.
The hell if I ain't.
By saying when you went to high school, I'm guessing you're my father's age. You were born in about 1918.
Yeah, 1918.
Is that right? That's when my father was
95,
born.
yeah. Yeah, we're the baby. And when I graduated, when I graduated Helper Christian, we had 72 kids in there. And we had one little nun, Sister Mary Thomas. She followed us from kindergarten all the way up. We were in the benches and all that. We walked to school. Everybody walked to school. When you walked up the street, you knew if the kid didn't go left or the Larimer school, he went up there. You knew he went to Lincoln School. So, you know, and then if you were in that area down there, you went to St. Peter's and Paul, if you're a Catholic, you know. And
Where are your children
German.
now?
Pardon me?
Where are your children now?
Oh, they're all gone. They're scattered.
Scattered, huh?
Yeah. It's a
Come to
shame.
Pittsburgh.
Because when we were born, when we were kids, we lived in the area. We didn't move. Your mother was up the street. Your aunt was up the next street, and you know, everybody had their own families in here, intertwined. You get what I mean? And we got hit by a depression. Welfare didn't come out until 1936, but the immigrants are too proud. Okay, I'll be right. She wants to eat. Oh, the immigrants were too proud. They wouldn't have, you know, the politicians would line you up, and they'd go downtown and get the frozen produce, and we'd line up to get it. Or you went up on Fridays when National Biscuit couldn't sell their bread and all that, and they stored up. For a quarter, you got 6 or 9 loaves of bread, and you stocked up on that, and the pound cakes and the other cakes, you know, the coffee cakes and all that. They'd throw them at you for a nickel. We had all bakery shops here.
Mm-hmm.
We had Duquesne Bakery, where Stagno is,
yeah.
and they had horses back, and they'd look
Is
at the bread.
Stagno still going?
No, he's dead. They're all dead.
I mean, the bakery's
The
not.
bakery's still baking.
It is?
That's what I hear,
if
yeah.
they're still baking, but after
Not
the old
very
man
much.
died, they screwed up.
Yeah.
They would on Sunday they had the storefront. They
Right.
didn't keep it clean,
Right.
and they went that pots.
They used to have a
started-
storefront also.
Then
in,
we had Rimini
Morningside.
down the alley here. He made the Rimini bread. And then on the end of Carver Street, you had the Gigantes. They made their bread.
Right.
And Persichetti's made bread there. And Castellani's on Hoover Street, you know. The Hoover Street was the street that
East of
joined with Negley's Run, which is the Run. goes down Washington Boulevard, and that water goes right down Washington Boulevard, and it goes right into the river.
Yeah.
And all the drainage from the Alligator River Boulevard drained that way, and all the Highland Park water from the Highland Park area that drains down there too. You know.
Do you remember where you
Yeah.
could see the streams? Where could you see the streams?
Well, you could see the streams. You could see them right where was the Social Security, where they build all the new development there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
all goes down there. Did you see underneath
I
the
did,
underpass?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the main one right there, and then you got the one at the East Liberty Post Office. You know where Dunleavy's used to be, the slaughterhouse. You know where Dunleavy is?
I know where that. I've seen the
Dunleavy's,
maps.
yeah, because the trains come in and brought the livestock in there, and they dressed them for 25. The guys, my brother's boyfriends, you know, they're older.
Yeah.
They worked there. Not everybody got that job, 25 cents an hour, and they killed the pigs and they dressed them like they did in Harris Island, you know, down in
Sure.
Harris.
Sure.
You know, they brought the animals there. You
Yep.
could buy a pig or a cow down there, and you brought them home and you brought them down the cellar. No heat in the house. You had pot-belly stoves, you know, and people had, the only thing we had is gas. Electricity come in the 20s, and people were afraid of the gas because most of these old houses, they had the gas lines to every room, and they had that little, you know, like Chatham College. Did you ever go up the alley there and you see those lanterns?
Yeah.
And a lot of those alleys back there, Maxwell Alley and Stobner Alley, the guy came at about 6 before dark, and he'd light all the lanterns with
right?
gas, yeah. And the gas lines are probably still there. You know that. And
So could I ask you? Sorry,
yes,
change the
yes.
subject. I'm fascinated by your beautiful trees and bushes.
Well, I did
You
this,
don't still trim
oh
them.
yeah, I do it.
You
sure.
you're out here.
Yeah. Oh,
Seriously.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Wow, and you go up on ladders, I assume.
No, I climb
you have,
them.
You climb them.
Yeah, I
and
topped
then you
that.
have
I topped this. This is a white pine. You know all that is? That's over 50 years old. Look at the size of that baby.
Wow.
I topped. You think I'm kidding you?
No,
me come
fascinating.
I gotta hold on to it.
Sure.
Now, see, look at the size of that baby. See that?
Yeah. it's-
That's over 50, 60 years
Beautiful.
old. I started out with a seedling. These are all ornamentals. I got about 50 trees there. I did this as a pastime. I made this at Colony Trade School in 1934.
The bench.
That bench, yeah.
Wow,
Look
beautiful.
at that, $5.
Hmm.
But I packed it. You know, did you ever hear of Colony Trade School?
No.
It's like Carnegie Tech.
Yeah.
Do you know what Carnegie Tech was? It was like Carnegie Trade School. You had Carnegie Trade School, your South Vocational. You know, they were all trade schools. You know, when the war broke out, we were lucky to have Carnegie Trade School and South Vocational.
You bet.
Because all our factories were all closed down. You know what I mean? Everything on Butler Street on the other side of the river, they were all shut down. We had no water. We needed that water. That's how I wanted it. But Roosevelt said, your sons will never go to Europe. But when the German U-boats came off of Georgia and North Carolina, they were sinking a ship a day. You know, every day. You heard that, didn't you?
There's some spots in New York, around New York City, where they put these nets, giant cable nets.
So the
across
German subs
water.
wouldn't go in Hudson Bay. Oh yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Camp Shank. I don't know if you heard of. You never heard of Camp Shank?
Maybe I have. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know where Camp Shank was?
No.
I could go on and on. I got the food on the table.
Oh.
Camp Shank is right where West Point is.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Sure.
Now, and let me tell you, that was the when the troops were ready to go overseas. That's where they sent you there. Camera phone, J.P. Harris, the Rex Theater, the Liberty Theater. Wait a minute. I mean the Region, the Enright. You know what they named him? Because he was the first one killed in World War One.
Oh, so it's
lived in
Enright
Chisholm
Street over there.
Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, Enright.
Yeah.
That's why they named Enright. And then Dick Powell lived up on the street on Broad Street. You know him? He was an actor.
Yeah.
Beautiful actor, handsome. I mean, you know. And his wife, and then he had the Empire Theater. And that went down on Collins Avenue between Sheridan and Collins.
Really?
It was cobblestone.
Wow,
the
what a
Empire
hopping
Theater.
place.
The Empire
What a
Theater.
hopping place.
And then, Mellon built his church here,
Yeah.
we call that Mellon's Church.
Right.
Because Andrew Mellon and his wife were buried there, that. And taught shoemaker in Carnegie Tech.
Oh.
He became the teacher there to teach somebody to fix, what do they call them? Shoemakers were called cobblers,
Cobbler.
right?
Yes.
Right. And a lot of Italians were cobblers.
Yeah.
And a lot of Italians were tailors, and and this, the Italians left Italy because there was always wars. Every 10, 20 years, you had a war every 10 to 20 years since Julius Caesar. And then if they had nobody to fight, they fought themselves. They fought the little principalities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were all, northern Italy, southern Italy.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like it.